Oh, hey. What's good? What's good? This is Liverpool 12th Man, voice of the believers. I am just getting done with Quasi Bowl TV, which was an excellent episode, an excellent show, I should say, as always. I also am doing this over this time because what happened was, unfortunately, the live button didn't go live when I went to go live. So this time we are live. I see the ticker in the corner, so we are definitely live. Um, I have this episode. I'm hoping that possibly some of the participants and guests that I invited to the show will be able to attend today. But this show is basically a show on the assets and liabilities, I believe, that have been with us through the Klopp era. And the reasons why I'm bringing up this is because I was on Box to Box, and Dr. Savage Banner, brought up a suggestion because it was something that we've spoken about quite a few times in the back room office about how certain players, I think, we get the worth out of them. We're getting the value out of some of these players. We're getting the value out of these players, but we're not getting, we're not seeing, we're not valuing, or not being able to show proper appreciation for the value that we have gotten out of the players. We just often look at what we get in return, as in transfer price and everything else. I want to say big up to the chat, big up to people tuning in. I'm glad to see that you're able to make a hello and show your love and show your support for a fellow Red. I appreciate that immensely. Yeah, let's just jump into this. Hopefully, some of the participants that I had offered the opportunity to show up and be a part of this hop on, because I'd like to know your interpretation of what I'm about to show you. This is basically going to be this is live, by the way. This is live. I'm just redoing the show here. Because I figured, I did the recording, and then I'm like, you know what? Now that I might be able to bring the guests on, hey, I'm just going to go and redo do the show. So what I was going to do here is I wanted to, again, bring up this spreadsheet that I made. All right, let me pull this up for you guys. All right. We're going to begin like this. We're going to begin with, this is basically Jurgen Klopp's era of football with the Liverpool Football Club from 2015 when he joined. Let's keep in mind, in 2015, this is something that's going to be crazy, because I'm going to show you basically, I had the net spend of 276 million, 250,000 pounds. Big up Ensman. You have the link if you want to hop in. Would definitely appreciate your insight on some of this, on some of what we have to do in this episode. But 2015 was an interesting year for Liverpool, in that 2015 was where we saw Klopp take over the reins for Brendan Rodgers. And what I mean by that is he took over a club that was already in the season. We're already well within the season. So we were looking at a club that I think we were 8 games in, I want to say. You tell me if I'm wrong, obviously. But we were, I believe, 8 games into the season. And he took over for a floundering Rodgers team that ended up, getting more out of the club than we thought we could get out of it, to be honest with you. Because, let's be honest, when the first 6 seasons under FSG ownership, we didn't finish. We did not finish. We only finished once above 6th place in the first 6 years, okay, of FSG ownership. But yet, when we did have the privilege of getting this coach involved in our club, things dramatically changed. And 8 games in 2015 campaign, we saw a club reach for possibly things that they probably shouldn't have been involved in, or even had an opportunity to get involved in. And that is, we were in a League Cup final, which we lost. I understand that. And we were also in a Europa final, which we lost as well. And I understand those are disappointments. Silverware is always the goal. But for us to have achieved that with the club that we had was showing some true promise. And I think the biggest thing that I wanted to make noted was that I'm going to show you the players that Klopp bought. I'm going to show you the players that Klopp sold. Some players were already a part of the club, so you're going to notice like there's a space that doesn't have a price on it because he didn't buy that player. But or even a net gain for him buying that player because he wasn't the person that initially bought the player. But what I am going to show you is that I hear these dialogues being pressed, and you know what's very interesting. For instance, I know this whole Arteta movement that is now very rampant, and often I see a lot of content creators bringing on other fellow Gooner or rival Gooner supporter or content creators, and they get to spout off about how Arteta did this and Arteta did that and Arteta did this. What's very interesting to me about it is that Klopp came into this club and Klopp joined this club and did not make one acquisition in his first year. The entire year he entered the club and joined the club 8 games in and did not make an acquisition in January, even though he was tempted to with Texera, who later on went to China. But he held firm and pat to see what he could get out of these players, to see the measure of what he was working with in these players. He gave a loyalty test and a devotion and commitment test to these players that first year. And they strived and almost achieved some a League Cup and a Europa League title. Fell short, however, that is noticeably good, in my opinion, because that's why I brought up the Arteta comment is this. Arteta took over for Emery, who we all know Emery is a well-tenured coach. He's someone that brings silverware. And Arteta took that team, and I think it was 12 games or something like that, and he got 8th place. And then he got a full year underneath Arteta, and he got 8th place. Okay. But yet he's now, the cat's meow. And yet if you look at Klopp's transition, he got 8th place, albeit that first season that he took over. However, the very next season, he ended up getting us in 4th place and getting us Champions League, getting us Champions League. That is huge. That's not what we saw from Arteta. That's why I get so amped and angry, or at least defensive, when I hear these things. I'm just like, where is the equal measure to try to truly justly say the things that we sometimes hear, not only rivals, or not only people that aren't even rivals, just fair weather fans, but even sometimes from our own fan base. It's very interesting to hear that. And look, it wasn't until 2016 that Jurgen made his transition, where he made a massive clear out of the Brendan Rodgers signings and started to really implement his and Edwards, who did a master class as well as being a sporting director, and also the director of research and such. The whole team, the whole backroom team that produced a phenomenal run of excellence for this club. And that's something that I really wanted to exemplify and show you with these next slides, and just show you how, this man went from 8th to 4th to getting us into Champions League, getting us into the Champions League, and in that year, taking us to the final, which we lost. I get that. Again, losing is not something I'm cool with. However, I'm not going to knock you for, you got to be in the game to win the game. Okay. And that is an achievement in itself to me. So getting to Champions League final against Real Madrid in his first campaign, huge. Then to domestically in 2018-19, with Klopp's players via Edwards' sporting director and masterclass, we finished second on 97 points. That's a massive, massive upgrade in performance. I'm not saying that second place is something to write home about. But what I am saying is that it is a massive difference in level of performance that we're seeing from this club. So, in 2019, again, to get our sixth European title via the Champions League, immensely huge. To do these different things is great. But let me jump into this because I'll get into the latter parts of his accolades. Let me get into this. All right. So what we're looking at here, and hopefully you can see this in the chat. I'll read it out somewhat, or read out some of the more highlighted points, because I know there's a lot of information there. You might not be able to see it if you're looking at it on your phone or something along those lines. I'm not sure. Maybe you're looking at it through your computer. But what we're looking at is players that were bought by Klopp. And I'd like to know in the chat, especially, if you agree with my ratings. Now, what I did was I put a bronze stat for players that were that just didn't meet the bar, or ended up, not really giving the contribution that was necessary to push us forward, or just had a high price tag on them that was an anchor for them, in the sense of never really amounting to the price tag that was allotted to their transfer fee. All right. And what I mean by that is, you'll see that I have, for instance, I have Naby on this list as a bronze. I have trying to think who else I have on here as a bronze. I have Ben Davies on as a bronze. Now that's going to change because, I just think Ben Davies didn't bring anything. He was the hologram for a long period of time. So we didn't really get a chance to see anything or any production or what he could actually do for our club. So, but for £500,000, that's not necessarily like, some major price tag on his neck. The other players on this list that were notable are Karius. Obviously, Karius was a big portion of the reason why we lost that Champions League final. Also, he was a player that had promise, but for some reason, he was the backup goalkeeper for Germany at one point. Obviously, and this is during when Germany was actually a relevant club as well in the international game. So obviously, he had some type of talent or skill set that was worthy of playing at an elite level. However, unfortunately for him, he had the knock. He had apparently, a rumored a concussion from, again, the Real Madrid typical dirty play, and he ended up putting in a real howler. So I would say bronze. You can see the other players, the other people on this list, like Jaros or Gallagher or Christy Davies. A lot of these players were players that we either got from the academy, or were players that they weren't anything special to begin with, in the sense of looking for elite performances out of them. If I'm wrong, please do tell me in the chat again. And if you tune in on this late, please do tell me in the comment section as well. The silver is where I see either you have promise or you've contributed enough to make me say thank you for your service. Okay. And a lot of these players were good, decent, or like showed up somewhat, but just didn't have enough to get to that next level. Or again, there are players like your Kai Gordons or your Calvin Ramseys or your Fabios or your Seth Vandenbergs. Those players are players that I think were more like that mid-range. They've got talent, they just haven't gotten it. And I mean, yes, Redbird's right about that. That's something. It's amazing how many players. Again, there are 53 players that we've bought. This is during the Klopp era. There's 53 players we've bought since Klopp took over this club. Okay. Again, and obviously Stefan Bajcetic's in that level, in that range. I hope that some of those players I just mentioned will eventually be in that gold status that I have there. But for right now, I have them in that silver status of being, still not players I would give up on, still players that have contribute here or there, but still players that definitely I would see as being potential, having still potential in them. And if you look at the prices that we got for them, a lot of players, whether it's Gruick or whether it's Dominic Solanke, whether it's Seth Vandenberg or Marcelo, who's the goalkeeper from Brazil, we're talking about 1.8 million pounds. The highest, again, was Solanke at 6 million from Chelsea. Pretty decent. Because then you go into the gold standard of the people that we bought. The list is pretty substantially beautiful when it comes to quality. Let's look at it. Sadio Mane, Joel Matip, Ginny. I rate Nat Phillips. Okay, don't get it twisted. I rate Nat Phillips. I think he contributed well. He contributed adequately, and that man will put his head through a wall if you asked him to do for this club. And that's something that I completely value and appreciate. And he filled in when we had a huge hole, massive hole to make up on. Mohamed Salah, Andy Robertson, Ox, Virgil van Dijk, Fabinho, Shaqiri, Alisson Becker, Harvey Elliott, Taki, Simicast, Thiago, Hatta, Kanate, Diaz, Nunez, Hakpo, McAllister, Dominic. I'm saying them gold because they're players I know are going to just automatically just hit the ground and run. Look at that list. Look at that list of gold players that I have in the gold status of players we've bought. This club makes some really, really good acquisitions and players that have been truly assets to this club. Truly assets. Big up to the chat again. Jay Kismet in the house. Big up. Big up to Ensman in the chat again. Appreciate that. Big up to Redbird. Definitely one of my fellow believers. Definitely big up. Big up to Robbie, of course, like I said. Big up, Robbie. But getting back to what I was saying, that's a really substantial list. These are just all players that we bought. And we're looking at 756 million, round off, 757 million, I'll round off. 757 million pounds is what we've put into the transfer. It pales completely in comparison to what obviously your Pep and City have done with their close to $2 billion in acquisitions. Okay, $2 billion they've used in transfer money. Okay, it's incredible. So this next graph is going to show you basically players that we've sold, and I have them as being gray or silver if they are players that we got some type of return, or we got some type of return, or it was a wash. Okay, some of the players you could say could be in the bronze era, because only in the bronze era I think that out of all those names, other than maybe Um, Andre Wisdom, who I thought I had high hopes for Wisdom, and Balotelli. Balotelli was one of my favorite players. I love the flair. I love the story behind his rise in football. I love the fact that he was an Italian player that was playing in the Premier League, and I wanted to see a difference. And that's another segment I'm going to do too. People keep an eye out for that. I'm going to try to address why Italian players for some reason don't really make it in the Premier League for some reason. But back to what I was saying is that a lot of these players, Adam Lallana, I put Ben Davies as a silver because, considering we paid $500,000, we got £4.2 million back for a player that never played one minute of first team playing time for us. I put on there some players like your Jerome Sinclairs or your Joe McGuire's. They never made it to the level that they were supposed to, so it was a wash. I ended up giving them, thanks for the effort, but I wasn't going to be too harsh and put them in the bronze status. But if you look at the list there, a lot of those names are just average names, albeit average names. Minus maybe your Lucas Leiva, or maybe pretty much just Lucas Leiva is the only name on this list of bronze, and obviously Lallana, that I would say were like close to maybe getting on that gold status. And I'd possibly even put Lucas Leiva in the gold status. I might be doing a disservice by keeping him in the silver. But if you continue on and you look at the actual gold status of players that we've sold, these are players that we sold, keep in mind. We're looking at Benteke. Again, we got £27 million. I don't even know how that's possible, but £27 million for Christian Benteke, a player that's now playing in the MLS, okay, and isn't exactly burning up the MLS per se, but still the same, a talented Belgian player that just never amounted to what we foresaw him playing. And the reason why there's a blank is because he is, again, not a player. He's a player that wasn't necessarily he wasn't brought in to this club by Klopp. He was brought in under the Rodgers regime, but he was sold by Klopp, okay? And for us to get and sold by Edwards or Klopp, however you want to put it, because he sold in 2016. Let's look at this list again. Danny Ings. I love Ings. I love how he to me definitely represented a good bit of what I feel is the underlying nature of Liverpool, in that, like, bring your work pail to lunch style mentality of just hard worker, committed to hard work and dedication. I love that element, and I thought that Danny Ings, despite the fact that he did have a bunch of injuries that kind of supplemented his ability to contribute, still got £18 million. It's decent value. It's definitely an asset. Danny Ward, $12.5 million. Let me go through these names. Solanke, we got $19 million for Solanke from Bournemouth. That was a steal in my mind for a £13 million balance of the sheet. Harvey Wilson, another player, huge promise. Don't know what exactly ever happened to why he didn't amount to what I thought he would amount to, or a lot of us thought he would. I would love to know what others thought about that. But $12 million, getting $12 million from Fulham for him, it's a pretty good asset. Joe Allen, Stoke City, $13 million from them, pretty good asset. Jordan eBay. Look, Jordan was a player that had a lot of promise. I don't know, again, why his career went the direction it was. I know that some people say he had, some mental demons to deal with, some definite issues. And mental health is nothing to poke fun at or laugh at. It's something that all of us go through in one way or another. So to see us get £15 million for Jordan, that was a huge, huge asset for my mind as to, despite him not being able to produce on the field for us, he produced in the bank account for us, if anything. Kevin Stewart, $7 million, the whole city. Kijana got $9 million to the Wolves. That was a steal for us, I believe. Sacco getting $26 million from Crystal Palace. That was a huge come up for us. All right. I rate Sacco, thought he was a good player. $26 million player. That's phenomenal for where he was at his career and what we were able to, the service that he was able to perform and the price tag that we were able to get back. It's pretty good, pretty decent. Skirtle, again, already well into his years, and also, but to get $5.5 million and allow for Skirtle to go to a team that was going to allow for him to continue his career, positive, because you can't knock that we didn't get any type. I thought Martin Skirtle was obviously one of the heart and souls of our defense. Tell me elsewise. If anyone disagrees, please tell me elsewise, because I would love to hear the reasoning why you would say that. Him and Agar, Daniel Agar, were simply definitely some of the heartbeats of our defense. Nico Williams getting 16 million pounds out of Nottingham Forest. Steal. Absolute steal. Big up to Nico, but 16 million is definitely showing Nottingham Forest believe you still have, and at that age I can understand it, but you still have an some promise left in your game. Ryan Brewster, possibly one of the best transfers on this list, considering he's an academy boy. Considering we had high hopes, he just didn't amount to be a player that we were going to look to rely on in the striker position. 23.5 million for him. Come on. You can't ask for more. And yes, I agree. Right here is, yeah. I don't agree with the Bozo gene. Gene, I think you mean, but yes. But I do agree with rugged guy. Skirtle was a beast when it came to defense. He was certain. He was like a Ibu before Ibu. Okay, in my mind. But again, getting back to it, Brewster, 23.5 million. That was a steal, man. Tell me elsewise. Please tell me getting 23.5 million from Sheffield United wasn't a huge come up for us. Lovren, again, him going to Russia. Look, you can say what you want about Lovren. Lovren did have a couple occasional mind slip here and there, but Lovren was definitely, when it came to the enforcer, he was someone that you could trust would have your back. He was also Mo Salah's best friend, who gave him some key elements of, I think, of why we saw some of the best performances from Mo Salah during Devron's inclusion on this team, was because it helps having a player on a team that that you can communicate with, that you like, or that you can vent to, or whatever it is. It was good business. And yeah, and Redbird agrees with me on that one. I think it was. Brewster was great business. Absolute great business. Let's see. The other names I have on here, Fabinho. Look, I know Fabinho might be one that I take off this list. I don't know if it's a guarantee or not, but and I didn't include Henderson at this time. But Henderson, again, is a player that easily has to be considered a 12 million. If we do get to 12 million, that's more than adequate service done, and definitely value appreciated and received in the price tag that we got for Jordan, and for the price tag that we end up leaving with, exiting the building with him for. And the same goes for Fabinho. If we're going to get 39.3 million for Fabinho coming off an off year. That's good business. That's really good business. I was disappointed in Ginny leaving. 25 million isn't exactly where a number that I was like, considering we paid 25 million for Ginny. I was disappointed that we didn't re-sign him. Klopp made an effort to re-sign him. He valued his performances. He valued his inclusion in his club. I think a lot of players, once he was gone, a lot of fan base, a lot of members of our fan base recognized his value and worth once he was gone. I think that we definitely got 25 million of an asset value out of him for the time that he spent before coming from Newcastle and before going to PSG. Again, tell me if I'm wrong. I know you guys like to do that if you find that. Then we have Sadio Mane. Sadio Mane, an amazing acquisition considering we got 30 million, sold it for 27.4 million. That's a net loss of 2.6 million for a player that, for one reason or not, has definitely fallen off a cliff. And it just goes to show you that sometimes the grass isn't always greener on the other side of the fence. It also shows that, hey, at times, despite the fact that people going ambition, or whatever they want to call it, hey, sometimes let's just recognize that this system was a good system for Mane. And him being transitioned to that 9 when we needed a 9 to fill in gave a resurgence in his value or worth in the world status of his already legendary status for us. But yeah, anytime a player is at a legendary status and you basically have a net loss of 2.6 million, that's value earned. That's value recognized. Minamino, got him for 7.25, sold him for 13. That's close to being double what we paid for him. Come on. Let's be honest. That is some decent business. Taki, at times showed some immense contribution to this club and showed real promise. I don't know if it was the language barriers and everything else, or maybe culturally adjusting to life from Japan to life in Liverpool. But, let's be honest. Taki was a contributor. And, let's see what Redbird has to say here. I reckon the Sallies will offer less for Fab because they were looking at someone else who is cheaper. I'm looking at it like this, Redbird. If we end up getting Fab back, I'm looking at it as, hey, Liverpool, FSG has already announced, Klopp as well has already announced that there is a need to fill these positions or fill these players to get these players in. So whether it's taking the money that we would have gotten for Fab, or if it means bringing Fab back to the lineup and implementing him as that 6, that will answer a lot of people's issues. We can go out and then still get a Lavia, or go out and still get a Kone or a Thuram, okay, and have some players that I personally think could fill that role still. I think Thiago could still fill that role. I think that we have Bashetic, once he gets back to health, could fill the role of DM for us. And having that rotation, having the ability to not have to rely on Fab as much as we did, which was a good 70% of the playing minutes were given to Fab when given the opportunity. Hey, you know what? That would be an asset to us, And again, Shaqiri coming in at 13.5 and leaving at 9 million, 4.5. I think we got a decent amount of return out of Shaqiri. Am I wrong? I think Shaqiri showed there were some highlights from Shaqiri's Liverpool existence that were possibly highlights of the year. I still can't tell you enough about the the pass that he gave to Mo Salah, that was when he was able to trap the ball and give Mo Salah that pass, that has to be one of the greatest passes of that campaign, easily. And I left this last player for last from the gold for players that we bought or sold, excuse me, for purpose. Coutinho was immensely important. You can slate him all you want. I know my good friend Cal is not a fan because of the way that he exited the club. But you can say what you want about Coutinho. But Coutinho contributed immensely and developed incredibly under both Rodgers and especially under Klopp to a player that would amount to $142 million. That's an amazing situation, okay, considering, albeit we didn't get Coutinho via Klopp, but the fact that we sold him £442 million and then utilizing those assets to buy possibly the two of the greatest players to play for this club, arguably two of the greatest players to play for this club, in VVD and in Allison. That is immensely incredible. Okay, I'm going to take some of these comments before I get into the last slide that I have here. Let's see. Daz O'Connor says, Lavia will be a good understudy to Fabinho, and then having Bichetti grow as a player. Exactly my point, Daz. Exactly my point. I'm cool with getting Lavia. And if the chat disagrees, let me hear it. But I'm cool getting Lavia. I just want to see Lavia come in as either an understudy or someone that is going to platoon minutes with the other players that we have in that position. I just really want to see that happen because I think that is where Lavia can grow as a player and can accurately and contribute to this club by not being thrown into the fire and say, we want Fab-like statistics or Fab-like quality from you immediately from the very gate. I don't think we're going to get that. I don't think we should expect that. That's my point. Redbird says, if Fab doesn't improve, if he stays, that will be a detriment to us. I trust Lavia's legs over Fab's. I can agree on your point. I understand that Fab's legs do look a little weathered. I think that was primarily, Redbird, because when Fab got brought back to the club, he unfortunately got brought back to the club. He got brought back, I think got rushed back from injury. And I think that hampered his ability to maintain his level. And then you put into place the amount of pressure and emphasis that they put on his shoulders again, especially with, Trent being able to give that free leash to go basically wherever you want to go. And then it became a more situation where you were relying on more Henderson, you were relying more on Fab to kind of weather the storm or weather the weights that they had to hold up. And unfortunately for them, at a little bit more of an advanced age at their end, they weren't able to do so. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. I was going to sneeze. But yeah, so Ripper also gets to say, nah, sick of people saying he's not old enough or experienced enough. Lavia was way better than Fab last year. Okay. If you're good enough, you're old enough. I agree. Look, Jude Bellingham or players like that are obvious constitutes of, if you're good enough, doesn't matter if you're young, how old you are, you can contribute. I will say you are right about that. However, I do enjoy knowing players that have weathered the storm, understand what it takes to sometimes find that extra that extra cylinder, or be able to have that reserve tank that they can go into because they've been there, done that, understand what it takes, or even having the ability to motivate or to inspire or to lead other players around them into the places and positions that they need to be in their development or on the pitch to be able to cover the positions and contributions that we need. That is something I'm saying. Jay Kismet, big up, brother. He's saying, bro, I have a player for you to look at. I'll let you know when you're finished with the stats. Awesome. I'm excited to hear who it is. And Redbird finally says, if Fab is as bad next season as last season, he ain't teaching the young gun much. I honestly cannot see where Fab will improve. Okay. To each their own, I guess, on that one. I think that Redbird, and again with the chat, can you not agree that Fabinho's statistics and contributions changed once we implemented the new system where we went into this box 4? Can you not see that his role definitely changed, but the immense amount of toil and the island that we placed Fab on, which is what I think was too often the situation in the beginning of the year, is that we placed Fab on this island that had too much space around it. And we had players that were not performing well, but again, I think it's a domino effect. And hear me out when I say this. I'll get your last comment in before I even say it. Fab is a legend, but like Hendo, he ain't no asset to our team no more. It happens to the greatest. His time has come to move on. Okay, well, this is where I'm going to say, this is the reason why I'm making a defense for Fab in this pretense. I think that there's always the caveat of, oh, well, he needs legs around him. That I agree with. I think that despite the fact that if it's going to be, if the players around you aren't pulling their weight, then it just means that you have more weight on you. And albeit that maybe his legs, maybe his shoulders weren't broad enough to take on the weight that you're referencing. My pushback, though, is this. Again, I think that you saw a difference in performance level for Fab towards the end of the year. I also think that one thing that we as a club or we as fans aren't really focusing on, in my opinion, is that our front line is the most important part of our defense. And I'll say that again. Our front line is even possibly more important than our back line when it comes to defense. And what I mean by that is our system that we play under Klopp is all about this counter press. It's all about having the counter press and that pressure initiate offense. That counter press initiate the fact that it doesn't overwhelm the engine of our midfield, and it doesn't put such a burden on our back line. It's a domino effect. I talked about the World Series of dominoes in the episode yesterday. It is a domino effect. We get our front line, big up K. We get our front line involved in our defense. We get that front line involved in being a sufficiently adequate pressing club. When it comes to our front line, it is going to be on, people. I'm telling you. The key difference and one of the key elements of what we saw in that front line with our legendary front line of Bobby, Mane, and Mo was the fact of their press. The press we got out of Mane, and the fact that he tracked back and provided extra emphasis on defense. The fact that even a talented, goal scoring prowess of Mo Salah, you saw him tracking back and giving the pressure that we saw. You saw these players, Bobby alone. Okay, we don't have to say much about Bobby and the fact that his false nine, emphasis of defense and press was essential. Unfortunately for some of these players, maybe that's the reason why you saw the fall for Mane. Maybe that's the reason why Bobby, was getting a couple of knocks here and there, and he wasn't able to necessarily bring that same consistency and pressure that we had seen so many years before that. But if we can reestablish that counter press, establish that front line, and then again, this is the episode I'm going to have coming up as well, with the emphasis of who you want to see in this front line. If we can reestablish that counter press, people, you're going to really see that midfield and the midfield, and especially that the back line. You're going to all of a sudden say differences of. You're going to see differences in performances. You're going to see differences in the quality on the pitch, simply from the emphasis of what we contribute towards that front line. I think Nunez is going to make that transition. He's going to make that transition into being a productive counterpresser. He needs to, in my book, because by being a productive counterpresser, he's going to be able to bring about a significant change to. He's going to bring out a significant change to the quality of approach or opportunities he's going to have, in a sense of by pressing higher up the pitch, by receiving and retrieving and reversing the possession. He's going to be able to have the ball where he's going to get the ball, for instance, off the press, right by the 18-yard box, or he's going to get it where he's going to be able to get it where he's going to turn from getting press, retrieve the ball like Bobby often did, and be able to have two amazing outlets, whether it's Hakpo, Diaz, Mo Salah, Hatta, having the access and ability to say, I can either distribute to these two immensely talented wings, or I can take on the pressure, take on the goal opportunity myself, considering he is right there in front of the goal practically. The further up on the pitch that we press and receive the ball, the better our offense and the better our defense is going to be. Hands down. I'm willing to definitely go to the board against that. But again, let's see this. These are players that 36 players have left on a free. Okay, if you look at this, if you notice that players that tend to leave on a free tend to be players that weren't necessarily valued or weren't necessarily huge assets. If anything, they were liabilities to the club. And that's the reason why, if anything, you see the majority of those players were liabilities. I included Naby Keita in that because Naby, unfortunately, was injured a good majority of the time. It was a player that had immense promise, but he didn't amount to the contributions that I would have loved to have seen from Naby. I was a big NFT fan or hoping of the NFT, but hey, that is what it is. I put Karius on there as another bronze player. And that's simply because, hey, you can't go back from what he did in that final. That was just horrible. Okay, so but if you look at the some of these other players that placed in the silver and gold, the silvers, they're close to. I know people might have Ox being in the bronze, possibly. I have him in. I did appreciate some of the contributions. Excuse me, and the ability to play multiple positions for Ox. I appreciate that. $35 million transfer fee hurts. That's what we paid for him. But could you say we got $35 million out of Ox? We got about that. I wouldn't say we got above that, and I wouldn't say we got exactly that. We got about that. I'm going to take a little bit of a loss in the pocket, if it means truly getting some type of value or contribution on the pitch. And these last players that I included were Daniel Sturridge, Divock Origi, Emery Can, James Milner, and Bobby. Obviously, they're hands down legends. Those players are hands down legends for our club. Yeah, man, I would love to hear some of the opinions on this list. And what's great about this list is there's some players on here that you probably didn't even remember playing for our club. There's some players that I had to really do some searching to figure out and remember what, if anything, they contributed to our club. And some of the players that were on this list, stand out with beyond a measure. But again, that's the list that I presented for you guys. I would love to hear some of your comments. Love to hear some of your takes. The reason why I brought this up was because I personally think that there's value in players, despite the fact that sometimes we don't get a high transfer fee. I think there's value in contribution for a player. Sometimes, despite the fact that we paid money for a player, we might not be getting back the exact same, if not less, for that player. It still doesn't mean that they haven't contributed or we haven't gotten the money or gotten the value for what we paid for that player. Let me go into some of these comments here. There's some of these comments. Okay, so make sure I have my notes up here too. Trap Joe is saying Nunez is already a presser. I think that he has pressing abilities. Definitely is not. He's not someone. There are certain strikers. Let's not get it twisted. There are certain strikers, the poachers, the people that don't want to don't want to track back. But how many times do you remember you seeing Nunez all the way back on like that back line, playing defense, knowing the fact that he's got to track back, and then realizing that he's got to go all the way back forward to that front line to provide an outlet for the possible counter press. Psychedelic Warrior, big up my G. I appreciate that. Hey, with the help of my brethren like yourself and those in the chat, it is a honored position to be, again, the voice of the believers. But again, getting back to it, I really think that Nunez was a good, has the good pressing ability in him, and I think that's one thing that we saw from. I think that's one thing that Klopp saw in him that made him think that he could develop that pressing nature even more so. And let me say this: it's good to be a presser. It's good to have counter press ability in your skill set, but it's also good to understand the spacing, the ability to understand how to, if anything, work as like a tandem. I believe Jay Kismet used that word or that reference on another segment, and that's just it. To have that segment, the ability to know the proper spacing, the proper procedure of cutting off angles so that you can create the proper press, and that's something that is necessary for I think that's something that's necessary for a proper pressing team. And if anything, Klopp mentioned it in his interview, we've got to be a pressing club. We've got to be. He wants us to be, if not world class, he wants us to be the staple mark for pressing. And I'm right there with them. I believe that it could be something that we need. I'm going to bring up your name in a second, Jay Kismet. I'm going to get to these other ones so that I can address it completely. Redbird says, very interesting show. I can't get my head around the number of players on the list. I agree with you. It's amazing how many players, because, Klopp has been here quite a bit. And the fact that I think, I'm trying to remember what the number exactly was, but 53 players bought, 54 players sold. So we've had a basic wash when it comes to the number of players sold, the number of players bought is about equal. So it's been players in, players out. Albeit the 36 players free definitely pushes that number over the top. But those are players that we probably didn't want in the first place for the most part. And if they are players like your Bobby Familiar, Bobbies and your James Milners, then they're players that we ended up putting in positions of empowerment in their decision of where they were going next with their list or next with their careers. A lot when we had the chance. I don't know what that's referencing. Nunez and Diaz are required to do that pressing. And again, this is why I think that Hata ends up starting most of the time over some of these other players, and the reason why Hata is often the player that is included in that front lineup is because of his ability to press. Hata's ability to press and have an engine to continue to put that pressure on, immensely important. And the sheer fact that he has the ability to just be Jota the Shata, in that he can just end up just, putting the ball in the back of the net, does make a difference. And Redbird says, it doesn't matter how many goals or how good a player he'll be for us. Some fans have a hate agenda towards him. It's sickening. Agree with you. It's possibly the reason why I noticed that he had the D9, given proper representation and showing that you are a believer like myself in that retribute. Okay, so let me just go into this name that Jake Kismet mentioned as well. I've got the name for you, bro, and I know you will know something about the player, Federico Redondo. Oh, wow. That is a very interesting player. I do have some stats for him, so let me before I delve into it, let me pull up his stats as well, because I did do a piece on players that look. We have been really in the market for a lot of players, and it has been something that. And again, I mean, like, I'm all about Argentina, and I get to see it. Fortunately for myself, I get to see a lot of North American football, and I get to see a lot of South American football as well, being in this hemisphere. But the player that he's referencing is an Argentinian player. I've primarily seen him when it comes to his player reference. But I know that he does play in Argentina, and I'm not certain. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm not certain if he plays for the Argentinian. I think he does play for Argentina. I'm pretty sure he plays for Argentina for the first team, not necessarily just for the under 21s, because I know he's like 20 years old, I believe, or something like that. Excellent player, definitely excellent player. Obviously, has that Argentinian mindset. 6'2" as a defensive midfielder. That's huge. I like that about him. Let me pull up the stats that I was referencing though for him, because I did do, when I was looking at midfielders, we've been linked with over now 66 midfielders. Now we've been linked to. Let's see what and I got you, Redbird. Exactly. Oh wait, so this is what Redbird had to say about that. I believe my number 9. I know you do too, bro. Definitely a part of the Darwin, the Invasor. Get it straight. He's the Invasor, people. He's going to invade that. He's going to be the invader of that back line of our oppositions. And the reason why I call him Invasor is in Uruguay, Jurgen Klopp made a reference to what he thought of Nunez when initially he got him. And he said that Nunez is a racehorse. He referenced him as being a thoroughbred racehorse, okay? And that he has just an amazing engine, so fast, so agile, such an immense, powerful runner. And when he made that reference of him being a racehorse, it made me think of, okay, in Vaso, in Uruguay, Ambassador, for those of us in America, is like the secretariat. Ambassador is the most acclaimed and most historical racehorse in racehorse history in Uruguay. Okay, he's the greatest racehorse in Uruguay history, and his name was Envasor. And Envasor is why, and this is why I believe the next Cavani is going to be our Envasor. He's going to be our invader, which Envasor means raider or invader. Okay, and I believe that he's going to be the Envasor of the back line, people. He's going to invade that back line with that pace. Trust me on that. Trust me on that. Big up to Chainsaw. Big up Chainsaw. Hopefully you get a chance to see some of the stuff. I know that Chainsaw has some very enlightened insights on who he values and who he doesn't value for the club and everything else. I'd love to hear if you can give me a comment, on the outside the page or whatever, not necessarily in the chat, but if you give me a comment on what you believe or what you think of some of my evaluations, I'd love to see that. So let's see what Redbirds has to say. Jacob, it makes me wonder if some of them are not Liverpool fans, but rivals trying to stir the pot. I definitely think there are many people. I don't know if you got the Disney Plus or whatever, but there are some scrolls amongst us, okay? There are certainly some scrolls amongst us, okay? Posing as Liverpool fans that are not Liverpool fans, okay? They're definitely on troll level trying to stir the pot. I'm in complete agreement with Redbird on this one. Nunez, I love the enthusiasm. If he stays bang in the middle of the box, he'll get his goals. I think I can, the one little pushback I will say that is that he does perform pretty well on that left wing. I'm not saying I want to see him on the left wing. I am just saying that I am going to give credit where credit's due with his performance and being able to take the ball off of the left wing and be able to press it center and create goals. Chainsaw, Nunez is a good striker, and Klopp needs to manage him well this season, especially juggling between Europa and league games. I think he will. I personally am on record. I know I was one of the first to be on record saying that I believe that Nunez is going to get 20-plus goals all comps. I even took it one step further and said he's going to get 20 goals in the Premier League on, I believe it was on GTV's, I want to say it was on GTV's telecast. Jerry James pressed me into that making those bold statements, since he has some really bold statements of his own. Okay, but I'm sure I'll get clipped up for that. Clip me up, I don't care. Let's see. Redbirds, Jake Kisman saying to Redbird, to you, exactly. This modern day internet fans are a different breed, moaning and moaning all the time. Shankly and Paisley wouldn't have let these fans in Anfield. Possibly so. Hey. Redbird, I have never known our fan base to be so toxic. I've been warning against that completely. It's a part of, if you do see my first episode, something that I've referenced is one of my mission statements, in that I am wanting to do my sole mission, I should say, or my earnest effort in this mission of embarking on YouTube and Twitter and all these different platforms, is to unify our fan base once again. We don't all have to sit here and spew the same opinions and everything else. I'm all for constructive criticism, people. Bring conducive points, bring your A game with statistics and facts and the like. I'm all for it. I'm all ears to listen and engage in that dialogue. I don't want to be a part of a toxic fan base, though, that we've already seen this made for TV drama play out, okay, in Arsenal, okay, and I don't want to see our fan base be that. I don't want to see the toxicity get to that level. And we easily can be at those kinds of levels, especially when we sometimes don't do or don't achieve the things that we've achieved, you know, in reference to that. So, so yeah, let me pull up some other things. Let's see. Chainsaw says, yeah, starting the pot. Ha ha ha. Jacob, so would you go Nunez left, Jota middle, and Salah right versus Chelsea? Wow. Great question. Depending if we have the anime episode this week, I am going to be bringing out an episode on our front three, or the front three I would start. I will emphasize that for especially the Chelsea game, but I will emphasize it even more so with the standard front three. But one thing I can say, with no spoiler, I guess you could say, but one thing I can say is I am just immensely proud of the fact that we have a front line that is so interchangeable and creates so many different possibilities. So many possibilities. Chainsaw says Hata definitely can hit 20 Prem. I think Hata can hit 20 Prem goals if fit. Exactly that statement. Knock on wood. I hope that he stays fit. He's had a hard time of staying fit, unfortunately. But if now maybe with the less emphasis of trying to not have the options, because we're heavy on left wing, and now that we do have a solidified number 9, that he could either play either in Hackpo's absence or Nunez's absence and have Hata play there, it'd be super. I think we should be looking at incredible numbers from our front three. Yeah, stirring the pot. I know he is. Chainsaw. Jay Kisner says, negatively pays in a weird way via the internet, bro. The way some people talk about Henderson, you would think he's embarrassed the club, except ECT. He's done his shift. Leave him alone now. And that means etc. Possibly etc. He's done the shift. Leave him alone now. I'm totally actually. You know what? I don't say leave him alone. You know what I say? Honor his service. Honor his service. Appreciate his service. And that's what the value of assets and liabilities is. What I was trying to get across. Appreciate the service that we got from him and from our captain. Chainsaw, we should give each player a chance and have hopefully Klopp changes his style to suit the new players. I think we're going to see that, Chainsaw. Some people are just miserable about life and looking for someone to blame, like Nunez. Psychedelic Warrior couldn't say more spot on. I think sometimes that old proverb, misery loves company. And look, a lot of us are going through different things in our lives. Some people are just miserable people, okay? But all the same, I think that, there are those of us that want to project positivity. There are those of us that want to really take to heart that you'll never walk alone moniker, and it's something that I truly agree with. That 12th man, the one brother keeps it cool and respects the game. Appreciate that always. You're one of the most positive fans out there by a mile. Appreciate it. Again, Redbird, we need more believers, man. I mean, look, I'm not saying that everyone has to drink the red Kool-Aid or something like that. But what I am saying is there is a lot more to be there's a lot more to be positive about this club than there is to be negative, especially for a lot of us that utilize this club as a resource for our sanity, that use this club as a resource for our solace, for our own mental health, for those things, to be a part of a club and a part of a fan base I'm just trying to exemplify as an OG, as one of the older members of this fan base. I'm not saying I'm the oldest by far, but I'm saying I am, OG enough that, hey, I take it as our duty to set a good role model place, or set a good example. That's the word I'm looking for the youth that are going to take our place eventually, for the youth and others that are amongst us that understand, may not have gone through the ups and downs of this club, may not have been privileged or blessed to have gone through the 70s or the 80s and been riding with this club when they had the brilliance of those clubs. Much like myself, I started following this club in the 90s, and that is because primarily now, it's scary to say it's 30 years later, but I have been through a lot of those ups and downs. I've been through a lot of these situations, and it's like one of those things where, you know what, a lot of times I see that as a lot of these situations, you have to ask, when is it that you started to embark on your journey with this club? Because you can then get a sense of where and how that player is going to interpret the hard times, interpret the times when you have to go through animosity, or you have to go through struggle, or you have to overcome those obstacles. I've seen this club do that time and time again. That's why I'm a believer. Let's see some of these other comments. I understand why the haters. I don't understand why the haters watch the game when all they do is point out negativity they can find. I agree with that completely. I believe our players will play better with positive encouragement and support rather than negative hatred, criticism, which probably encourages them. This point is so spot on. Them to leave the club like Hendo. Look, if you don't think that players don't have socials, or don't have them, or don't see the comments, if you think they don't hear these Talk Sports and Sky Sports and ESPNs with their takes, and even YouTube occasionally, if you think that they don't have either themselves or someone a part of their family or their team, if you think that someone isn't monitoring or allowing someone to gauge how and what is being said, you're kidding yourself, man. You're kidding yourself. Those players in 1985 or 1988, because I often see, or hear your Stevie Nichols or something like that, that really go harshly on a lot of these players. And I'm sitting there going like, I get it. Look, you're a club legend in yourself, but yet you didn't have to deal with social media. You didn't have to deal with all these issues and problems that we often see with a lot of these, with the mental anguish that a lot of these players get from these fans, from sometimes not just rivals, not just trolls / scrolls, okay, but also from our own fan base. Imagine if every time you went home for family dinner and every time you sat down, there's someone hating on you. If there's any place you should receive positivity, is amongst your own family. And if anything, everyone in the chat, if you rep the badge, if you claim to be a part of this Reds family, if you claim to be a Red supporter, to me, you're part of my Reds family, and I appreciate each and every one of you. And I think that we need to carry that more often. I was there at Anfield when we started his career with us. Fans were hating him because they thought he would tie Gerrard's boots, he couldn't tie Gerrard's boots, let alone replace him as captain. He's done it, though. Absolutely agree. In more so than not, there could be argument as to if he's done more as a captain than even our legend Steven Gerrard has done. I love positivity, but Hendo praise goes too far, just like the hate towards him. I thank him for the service, but time was up a couple of seasons ago in Chainsaw's opinion. And again, you're welcome to your opinion. And there is time when some players do have to go. I understand that completely. Question for you guys about positivity. When we played Barca after losing 3-0, did you guys believe before the second game at Anfield that we would win the tie? Honest answer, please. I wish I could put a poll. I wish I could present a poll. Let me see if I can. I don't know. I'm gonna learn how to do a poll. That's a good question. Look, I'm there with you, Jay Kismet. Often when I do combat, not necessarily Chainsaw's comment, because I'm not trying to go against what Chainsaw has to say, but when I do hear sometimes the backlash that I get for my positivity, or for sometimes making the claims for 71 points, for instance, or for us, or for Nunez having a positive year this year, or for whatever the takes that I do take, often I reference that. I mean, like, if anything, the reason why I have on here Voice of the Believer, Voice of the Believers, is because I am a believer. Just as Klopp was saying about he wanted to take doubt from people, from doubters to believers. Look, you didn't have to take me from a believer. I was already a believer because I was witness of 2005, people. I was witness to us playing in a Champions League final against possibly one of the greatest AC Milan teams of all time, and watching a club with Gerrard, which is possibly the reason why you could have an argument that Gerrard still does hold that captain status of greatest captain of Premier League history. But watching that team pull themselves up from their bootstraps and to knock that game up and win it in penalties was something to make you say you believe. And to look at that roster and to say, yeah, this team's going to have a chance to win. It just made me say, hey, after 2005 especially, I was already a believer. A decade obviously before 2015 came along and we got Klopp in. I was a believer long before those days, and it's the reason why I was a believer now. And if anything, Barcelona, that never give up shirt that you saw when we saw the majority of our best players, again, keep in mind, our best players on the bench, and having role players step up once again, immensely empowering for when it comes to belief. Joe Gomez needed the extra support from the fans since he's going through a lot. He is our fourth choice currently, so Europa and Cup games matter a lot. I agree. Look, I have been an openly critical critic of Joe Gomez. I think that Joe Gomez deserves our support. I think that, and here's something I will say, I don't think Klopp is doing him a service by continuously putting him in that center back role. I would personally play him at right back and focus his talents on that. I believe that his ability, obviously his strength, his speed, his knowledge of defensive tactician, which is loosely based now, consider his confidence, is definitely at an all-time low. But I think that playing him at a right back position could create that confidence and could return Joe Gomez to the level, or at least put him back on par to that status of contributor for this club. Let me see. Let's get through some more of these little comments, and then I'm going to bounce out here. These days, some games at Anfield, the crowd are quiet. That would never happen back in the day. Even if we were losing, we would sing our hearts out to lift the players. I agree. I absolutely agree. Again, it takes those OGs, the people that start those chants, the people that some of them that possibly created those chants. It takes those level of characters in our fan base to bring up the 12th men, because we're all 12th men. I'm a 12th man. You're a 12th man. Those people in Anfield, they're a 12th man. That positive energy is what I'd like to see. And that's what I constitute as being important to our success. Question from Chainsaw. What negativity caused last season to occur? We almost won the quad, and no new signings cost us a lot. Klopp needs to take accountability with the situation with players like Hendo and Fab. Okay, so the negativity, I think, was not necessarily existent. Can I say this in defense? If VAR was accurate and holds Everton or holds City accountable in the Everton match, we're looking at a different outcome. During that quad year, if Aston Villa, who had storybook writing of a performance being written in that game against City and having Coutinho score, I'm not positive. I think Danny Ings might have scored as well. Or no, I don't know if Danny Ings scored or not. But all the same, I remember Coutinho did score. If they could hold that result, we're having a different conversation. If, and it's the big if possibly a Thiago, who was such an orchestral, was such a monumental piece of our team at the moment, during that season, is fit for that final, are we not possibly talking? Because it's not like Real Madrid washed and rinsed us. We lost, I believe it was 1-0, I want to say. So if that happens, are we not speaking possibly a different tone? In essence, one goal difference or one goal setting in both the Premier League and Champions League made the difference of us not getting a quad. We were 2 goals in essence away from a quad. That's something. But I don't know if that necessarily answers your question or not. I hopefully did. I still believe we could have won the Barca game after Dembele missed the chance to make it 4-0. I knew if we scored 1 or 2 at Anfield, the crowd would get charged up. And look, I think also one thing that people overlook is that despite the fact that we lost at Barcelona, we played pretty well at Barcelona. It wasn't like we got. I know we had some shortcomings in that game that ended up amounting to goals for Barcelona, but I don't think we played extremely. I don't think the scoreline was accurate to the level of performance that we wanted to bring that day, but we made up for it. We definitely made up for it. Fortunately, Joey lacks concentration and has cost us dear in games. I agree with that. So it's always a worry when he plays. That's not dissing him, and it's facts. I'm agreeing with that. I'm not saying that. Again, we can always be constructive. I don't have a problem being constructive with our criticism. And he does lack concentration. I think that's a portion of his confidence. And then once his confidence starts to wane, that's when you start to see the lack of concentration, and that ends up creating mistakes. Can't have that. It's again why I don't necessarily want to see him at center back. I want to see him. I think he has a place on this club. I just think that place is at right back. I agree, bro. I guess because we won everything the last 4 years, the crowd have higher expenses. I was talking Redbird. I didn't believe we'd win, but I thought we'd get a draw. Let's see. I knew we would beat Barca that day. It's Liverpool way of thinking, overcoming obstacles. Big up Nigel, new to contributing to the movement. Big up. You never walk alone, for sure. He's saying, yes, I watched the 1977. Oh, wow. The 1977 FA Cup final and European Cup. Big up, Nigel. You've lived through some great years of this club for sure. Again, you get a good sense of people that have grown up in certain eras of this club's existence. You get a good sense of what they really represent, what their feelings are going to represent with this club. Chainsaw, I love your opinions. I love your I love your positivity and knowledge. My comment was that the fan base in general goes wild either direction, whether positive or negative. Absolutely agree with you, Chainsaw. I think, unfortunately, especially with social media again, and with the situation of our world, in the sense of everyone is able to have an opinion that can be voiced and heard on a global perspective. We have a lot of reactionary fans, and sometimes they don't utilize that patience or pause for a moment and be able to really digest or crunch what it is going to be a solution. They just whine sometimes, in my opinion, and bring no solutions to the table. I agree about Gomez as well. I worry about him next season. I hope he can play well at right back. I agree too. Although he was targeted regardless, center back is more of a worry. I agree. The Gerrard final, our greatest Premier League captain. Hendo won the league, but Gerrard was the guy. I can understand that. And then personally, I'm in agreement with that. Even though I do give much love to Hendo for his leadership as captain. The facts: Barca had Coutinho and Suarez. It added to our motivation. That could definitely be noted. And I cried my eyes out when we lost FA Cup. I can only imagine, man. Especially if you got to see it in the first place. That would have been incredible. Treble I Tatters. Big up, Nigel. Yes, definitely. You never walk alone. We need a fourth choice. Look, my selection, and I've heard people's opinions and takes on this, as in they don't necessarily hold him. I know Redbird made a comment about that, despite him being a childhood fan of Liverpool, it doesn't necessarily constitute that he doesn't really care about that or like along those lines. I differ. I could never, if I had a child and that child was like, hey, Everton is looking at me, picking me up as a player and bringing me as a player, or City came and said that they want to bring me on as a player, despite the big difference between the two clubs. Okay, if my son has the ability to play for a City, I would just say to him, we need to go and give Klopp a call. Or we need to go give someone else a call, because there's just some teams I would not want to see you play for. And especially if you're a child, if it was me as a person and I'm growing up and City's knocking on my door saying, hey, we want you to come and play on our squad, I'd be like, thanks, but I'm going to go see if I can walk on and literally walk on for Liverpool. If I have the ability to give your head a turn, I'll show the ambition and in my own skills in cementing a different opportunity for me. Because Vardy is a player that says he's a childhood fan of Liverpool, still supports Liverpool, and everything, and was campaigning for Liverpool to come and get him. Now he's starting to say that he's going to go for. Now he's open and already agreed to terms apparently to joining City. Hey man, that's some true sacrilege right there, in my opinion. I get it. If others disagree, but no. I want Vardy on this team, not on City. How about that? Let me get through some of these comments real quick. I'm just going to run through these real quick. Stevie's the GOAT captain. We would love to see him. I would have loved to seen Stevie play under Klopp. As in, I would have loved to have seen him in that role. I can agree that if the two players reversed roles and Hendo was where Stevie was and Stevie was where Hendo was, I don't think we would have seen the same results personally from Hendo in Stevie's role, as opposed to I would see that we would have seen the results, if not possibly even greater results, if Stevie was in Hendo's role. But that's not a knock against Hendo. That's more so saying that Stevie is definitely one of our all-time greats. Let's see. Psycho, we didn't have Mo or Firmino either. That they thought it would be a walk in the park. Agree. Nigel say hello. Gomez is a lot better at full. Is a lot better at being a full right back. No, I agree. Facts. Origi and Sakiri put a prime Messi into place. They did, and that's the reason why I had Shaqiri and Origi in the gold status, because of those legendary style performances. Mo's t-shirt that day had Gerard's tattoo quote on it: "Never give up." Absolutely. Football has changed. We have allowed it to. Wait, let me read this out. Football has changed. We have allowed it to, in the same way as politics. Domestic English football could be a thing of the past, but the people involved up top have anything to do with it. I agree that there's a great deal of emphasis for money and involvement of money in today's game. And, as much as people hold FSG to task, which I can understand them doing so, let's not get it twisted. The involvement of nation states, the involvement that UEFA does, the involvement of FIFA, who I was a former part of, okay? I used to work for FIFA at one time in my life. I appreciate, again, the involvement that I got to do with FIFA, but I'm going to be constructive in the criticism that money has changed the game immensely, and it continues to do so. All right, let me get through a bunch of comments. I appreciate all the comments coming through. I keep saying people are stupid on the Saudis. They have unlimited funds. I agree. Chaseall, great answer, 12th man. Great stream as usual, per hitting the likes as usual. I appreciate that. We had 25 chances against Madrid, cooked them. Yeah, that game against okay. You're talking about the game against Madrid. Okay, my bad. Madrid, we cooked them, and all they needed was one goal to win it. We weren't clinical enough, and Courtois played. Courtois played off the chain. There, if you all remember with me, and I don't want to bring up bad memories, but Mo had a incredible opportunity that I could have swore was going to rattle the back of the net. We had so many opportunities, but again, you're right on point. Psychedelic warrior. We just weren't clinical enough. We just could not put the ball in the back of the net. And Courtois played to an exceptional level. And sometimes players just do that. And we unfortunately have run into circumstances that they've done that. And if anything, more times than not, the opportunities that we're referencing, the goalkeeper has been the difference maker when it came to us losing a lot of these chances. That Messi free kick against Liverpool was special. Beyond special, just as much as the one he just showed up in Miami. Messi is one of the GOATs for sure. What on earth are you on about? I don't know what that's a reference to. Another problem with Joey is he does make a mistake he finds it hard to recover from. I think that's also a circumstance of the system being that if we're going to play him, especially if we're going to play him at a right center back, quote unquote, position, it does make it a more difficult place for him to have to tack back more emphasis, since it means that we have, rather than 4, we have 3 in that back line. It makes a difference. Okay. Let's see. There's a lot of comments dealing with the the Madrid and Barcelona. Let's jump on to. I agree. I reckon we would have made a difference maker to win the quad. I think it would have made a difference. I honestly do think it would have made a difference. This last point is I'll make one more last point. Jimmy has a pirouette in the FA Cup. I wasn't able to see that, but I think he's talking to Redbird. And Redbird says, have any of you watched Steven Gerrard, the Ultimate Midfielder? It's on your YouTube. When you see it, you really see it, you really do think, wow, I knew he was a GOAT, but forgot just how good he was. I watch it now and then. Hey, if anyone needs a pick-me-up, I haven't watched that particular segment or that particular piece, but I will for sure. If anyone ever needs a pick-me-up, I do the same when it comes to watching. I watch sometimes the Barcelona match over. I know for a lot of us, as of recently, if we need a more recent occurrence, hey, tune in and watch the 7-0 victory over Manchester United. These are all just reminders and pick-me-ups. These are things that get me through my day when it comes to feeling down or I'm feeling like a little lost in what we need to do. I mean, it is truly what it is. And I hope that you guys will join me again for when we do have a call-in. I'm going to be bringing a call-in show. I'm probably going to I know this Friday is going to be Copper's call-in show, so and I know they only do once a month, so to go against that would be probably a difficult task to bring about. But yeah, Second Duck Horse says, big up 12th man in chat, great show. In facts, Redbird, Stevie Gold catalog was different levels. Absolutely. Yeah, I think once we watched, I think once we gave handed Manchester United that 7-up, I don't know how many times I've been watching that match, and again, it made me believe in this club and many other attributes. It's something that I've said again. It's watch that game over, people. You'll see possibly the greatest example of the counter press that I was referencing. You'll see often the greatest backing up or reference of what I call the amoeba formation that we play. You'll see the fluid formation that we played in that game was beautiful in my humble opinion. You'll see what it is that we are trying to transition into, what we're seeing a little bit more out of our players when it comes to the interchangeability of a lot of these players, and that's something again I'm really looking forward to. I'm with you people. I'm with my Reds brethren here. When I say I would like to see us bring in a DM, I would like to see us bring a center back. I would also possibly like to see us bring in an additional forward option. I've been on a campaign, albeit maybe a biased campaign, to see Balogun be that option. If people don't believe me, trust me. I'll do a Balogun, a campaign for Balogun episode, and you'll see what I mean by the fact that I think that Balogun, his arc and his skill sets, and he is on path to be a Harry Kane-esque. Not saying he's Harry Kane, but Harry Kane-esque. He is currently the player that resembles Harry Kane in statistics and in ability related to the statistics. But again, I'll bring up that episode soon enough. So looks like we're going to be coming up on the end of this show. I, again, would appreciate if you could leave comments for me. I will address them. I would like to say this is something that I truly believe in. This was a quote by a fellow Reds when being interviewed about what he believes "You'll Never Walk Alone" means. He said, "You'll Never Walk Alone" is not just a song. It's not merely an anthem. It's a statement of intent. And my intent has always been to be a voice of the believers, to always walk along my Reds brethren, to be a voice when we have to go against the scrolls/trolls, the rivals on these airways, sometimes the jokers that some of these other rival or other content creators try to present as being representatives for this club. I don't agree in sometimes the people that they put in front of that camera or allow for it to be in that platform. I think sometimes they do it on purpose, because that way, if you bring out a jester, a joker, a clown, you can often have that representation be held as the standard for our fan base. Our fan base is no jokers. Our fan base have never been anything of the sort. We are the Mighty Reds for a reason. So I'm asking for you, by subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing, especially whether they're Reds or not Reds, because hopefully maybe we can bring some believers or turn some doubters into believers. We can turn some we can have some maybe Cooner Lees that stick with the club rather than pretend to ride our coattails on our good days and then jump off the bandwagon. I can initiate this more. This becomes a movement with the help of you. To empower our Mighty Reds is my mission, to be a voice and to walk along with you, my brethren, to walk along with you, my Reds. That's meaningful and something that I truly want to do. I'm here for the constructive criticism. I'm here for the interactive dialogue, and I'm here for bringing solutions. And that's all I want to do for this club, because I want to see glory for our club. I want to see glory for you and me as Reds. So with that, I'm going to end our segment. Again, I'll be on tomorrow. Most likely, I'm trying to find a good times again, so I don't knock up against our other content creators in the community. I'm looking at trying my best to, contribute, support, do exactly all the things I said before for them, and and it's a good testament of my commitment to it is by the fact that I'm going to comment, because that's one of the most important parts of the algorithm, and I'm going to like, I'm going to share, I'm going to subscribe, because I would like the same to be blessed upon me. I appreciate everyone in the chat: Nigel, Psychedelic Warrior, Jay Kismet, You Never Walk Alone, Redbird D9, Chainsaw, Sam AH. Who else did I? Hopefully I didn't miss anyone in Ends TV. Oh, most certainly. Ends TV. Ends Man TV is one of my brethren, someone that definitely motivates me, inspires me to do the things that I do as well. He is someone that is certainly a true Red, true. Do support him as well. Some of the big up to Trap Joe, who made an appearance. Big up to K, LFC. You have to tell me what the BB means. And Gangnam Deep, big up to you as well. So many loyal. Ravi, I couldn't forget Ravi, because Ravi's definitely one of the positive entities in the fan base. Big up to all of you. Big up to my Reds. And with that, I bid you good night and a fond tomorrow. Again, you'll never walk alone. Up the Reds. And see you soon. I'll definitely see you soon.